Lesson 9-3, Solving Quadratic Equations. In the past couple of lessons, we've been talking about quadratic functions. Those looked something like y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. In this lesson, we have equations. So instead of the y equals, we have a 0 equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So exactly what I just said, equaling 0, that's the quadratic equation, different from a function. And the standard form of that equation is this. So to solve quadratic equations, we can do several different things. The two we're going to learn about today is graphing and finding square roots. Because in a quadratic equation we have the square, we can use square roots to help us get solutions. Alright, so the solutions to an equation are the same thing as if we made our equation a function with y equals, where that graph crosses the x-axis, or in other words, our x-intercepts, those are the solutions to the equation. So that's why our first method is graphing, because to find the solutions to the equation, whatever the x-intercepts are, or in other words, roots of the equation, or zeros of the function, those x-intercepts are our solution to our equation. So a little confusing because we're talking about functions and equations, but just follow with us. So first method is solving by graphing. So if I have an quadratic equation, notice x squared minus 1 equals 0. If I use the quadratic function, so instead of equals 0, I'm going to make it y equals. We know how to graph a function that's quadratic. So plug in points, figure out how to graph your parabola, and whenever the graph crosses the x-axis, those are the solutions. So in this case, it crossed at 1 and -1. So we have two solutions which we call positive and -1. That's how you write that. With a parabola or a quadratic function or equation, you'll either only have two solutions, one solution, notice it touches just at 0, or no solution because the vertex is above the x-axis. Okay? Second method is using square roots, which takes less time. I think you'll enjoy it. So you take the equation, 3x squared minus 75 equals 0. This time we're not making it a function. We're keeping it as an equation. Get x by itself. So I'm going to add 75 to both sides. So I have 3x squared equals positive 75. Divide by 3. I have x squared equals 25. To get rid of the square, if you square root both sides, the square is eliminated. I have just x. Square root of 25 can either be positive or -5 because 5 times 5 equals 25 and -5 times -5 equals 25. So we say both answers. This equation has two solutions, positive and -5. I'll do some more examples. Alright, in example A, I'm going to add 36 to both sides. I have m squared equals 36. To get rid of the square, I'm going to square root. M can equal positive or -6. So that one has two solutions. Alright, example B, subtract 15. 3x squared equals -15. I'm dividing both sides by 3. X squared equals -5. Square root both of them. There is no real number that can equal the square root of a -5. So I say there is no solution. In example C, subtract 16 from both sides. 4d squared equals 0. Divide by 4. d squared equals 0. Square root of 0. We get 0. One solution for example C. Alright, and sometimes when you're using a quadratic equation to model a real-world problem, you have to think about the reasonable solutions that you get. There might be times where a negative square root is not a reasonable answer. I'll show you what I mean. If we were going to find the volume of this aquarium tank, remember that volume equals length times width times height. Width, length times height. That will give us the volume. So it tells us that the volume is 420. It also tells us that the length is twice the width. So we have width and the length is 2 times the width. Height they gave us is 3. So altogether this is 420 equals 6w squared. I can divide by 6 to both sides. 70 equals w squared. Do the square root. I get positive negative 70. Now, this is where you need to think of your answer. We do not want a dimension of our tank to be negative. So in this case, the only solution that works is the 70. That brings us to our lesson check. Please complete 1 through 4. You're finding the solutions to the quadratic equations.